The rain on Kareth Prime always smelled of metal. It fell from the sky in heavy sheets, carrying with it the taste of rust oil and the faint tang of ozone from the power towers. Neon lights flickered against wet pavement, painting the streets in shifting colors: green, violet, red. The city never slept. Jonas pulled his jacket tighter and kept his head low as he moved through the crowded avenue. The humans here were always told the same thing: keep quiet, keep small, and don't attract attention. He tried to follow that rule. He was just a mechanic working at a dockyard where alien ships came and went. No one important. No one who mattered. But tonight something was different. The deeper Jonas walked into the lower district, the fewer crowds he saw. The vendors closed their stalls, the floating signs dimmed, and the sound of laughter gave way to silence. The alleys here belonged to others: gangs, syndicates, and most of all, the alien police. Jonas knew he should have turned back. Humans weren't welcome here after dark, but his shortcut home went through this part of the city, and he didn't want to waste another hour walking the long way around. He kept telling himself he'd be fine if he stayed out of trouble. Then he heard the shouting. At first he thought it was just another drunk brawl. But as he neared the corner, the noise grew sharper, crueler. Jonas stopped, hidden in the shadows, and peered around the edge of a building. 3 alien officers stood in a half circle, their armor dark blue with flashing badges on the shoulders. Each one carried a shock baton crackling with energy. On the ground before them was a woman, her 4 arms wrapped around herself as if to shield her body. She was tall, with pale green skin and black markings along her face. Her clothes were torn and one of her eyes was swollen shut. Jonas felt his stomach tighten. The tallest officer jabbed her with the baton, laughing as she cried out in pain. "Stand up, scum!" he barked in a language most humans struggled to learn. Jonas understood just enough to catch the meaning. The woman tried to push herself up, but another officer kicked her legs out from under her. They laughed again, the sound cold and mocking. Jonas told himself to walk away. This wasn't his fight. Humans who interfered with alien law enforcement disappeared. Everyone knew that. The police didn't need a reason. They only needed an excuse. He took a step back. His heart pounded. He knew he should run. But then the woman lifted her head. For just a moment her eyes met his. Desperate. Pleading. And something inside Jonas snapped. He wasn't brave. He wasn't strong. But he couldn't watch this anymore. Maybe it was the way she was curled up like a beaten animal. Maybe it was the way the officers laughed as if cruelty was just a game. Maybe he was just tired of pretending humans had to keep their heads down forever. Before he knew it, his legs carried him forward. "Hey," Jonas shouted. His voice cracked, but it was loud enough. The officers turned, surprised to see a human standing there. Their expressions shifted quickly from confusion to amusement. One of them sneered. "Go home, little animal. This doesn't concern you." Jonas's hands shook, but he forced himself to stand tall. "Leave her alone." The officers laughed harder this time. The tallest one stepped closer, towering over Jonas. His armor glowed faintly in the rain, and the baton in his hand hummed with energy. "Or what, you'll fix my ship for me?" Pathetic human. Jonas swallowed hard. He had no weapon, no plan. Just anger boiling in his chest. He bent down, grabbed a length of broken pipe from the ground, and held it like a bat. His arms felt weak, but he raised it anyway. The officers exchanged looks. Then, to Jonas's shock, the tallest one struck first. The baton swung at his side, and pain exploded through his ribs. Jonas fell to one knee, gasping for air. The officer leaned down. "Stay down, or I'll break you in half." But Jonas didn't stay down. He pushed himself up, every breath burning, and swung the pipe as hard as he could. It connected with the officer's helmet with a loud crack. The alien staggered back, cursing. The other 2 rushed forward. Jonas barely dodged one strike, but the second baton caught his shoulder, sending him crashing into the wall. Sparks of pain shot down his arm, and the pipe clattered to the ground. He thought it was over. He thought he'd die here, beaten like the woman. But then something unexpected happened. The woman, bloodied and bruised, suddenly lunged forward. With surprising strength, she grabbed one officer's arm and yanked him down, slamming his head into the ground. The crack of bone echoed in the alley. The officer fell unconscious. Jonas blinked in shock. She wasn't as helpless as she looked. Fueled by her defiance, Jonas grabbed the fallen baton and swung wildly at the officer nearest him. He didn't fight with skill, but with desperation. The baton struck the alien's leg and the officer stumbled. Together, Jonas and the woman forced the last two officers back. The tall one snarled, clutching his dented helmet. His eyes burned with fury. "You'll regret this, human. You don't know who she is." He barked a command into his communicator, and in seconds the sirens of approaching reinforcements echoed in the distance. The woman grabbed Jonas's arm. "We must go now." Her voice was deep but urgent, her words broken but clear. Jonas hesitated. Every instinct screamed at him to run in the opposite direction. But the woman pulled him and his feet followed. They sprinted through twisting alleys, slipping on wet pavement, weaving between abandoned stalls and rusted doors. The sirens grew louder behind them. At last they ducked into a hidden passage behind a stack of metal crates. Both collapsed against the wall, gasping for breath. Jonas's ribs ached. His shoulder throbbed. His head rang from the fight. But he was alive. The woman looked at him, studying him with sharp alien eyes. Why did you help me?" Jonas wiped rain from his face. He thought for a long moment, then said quietly, "Because no one else would." The woman's expression softened, though her gaze remained heavy with secrets. She extended one of her forearms, a gesture of respect in her culture. "My name is Soraka. You do not know what you have done tonight, human, but soon you will." Before Jonas could ask what she meant, the distant roar of engines shook the ground. Reinforcements were here. Jonas closed his eyes, realizing he had just stepped into something far larger than a street fight. His life, once quiet and unimportant, would never be the same again. The next morning, the city looked different to Jonas. Kareth Prime was always noisy. Hover bikes humming, market traders yelling, neon signs blinking through the smog. But today every sound felt sharper, every shadow heavier. He walked through the crowded streets with his hood up, his ribs still aching from the fight. His eyes kept darting around, looking for armored officers or flashing sirens. No one seemed to notice him. That should have calmed him, but instead it made him nervous. Last night was too big to simply vanish. Soraka had left him at dawn. She hadn't explained who she really was, only warned him to keep his head down. Then she disappeared into the endless maze of the lower district. Jonas had wanted answers, but she was gone before he could ask. Now as he pushed through the crowds, he realized he wasn't just scared, he was angry. He had defended someone from cruelty, and for that the alien police would hunt him. That wasn't justice. That wasn't law. That was power crushing anyone too small to fight back, and humans were always small here. Jonas reached the dockyard where he worked. The place was massive, a sprawling port where ships of every shape and size docked for repairs, fuel, and trade. The air smelled of oil and plasma discharge. He walked past rows of humming engines and towering scaffolds until he reached his workshop. His boss, a gruff human named Keller, spotted him immediately. Keller's face tightened. "Where the hell were you last night? You didn't clock in for second shift." Something happened," Jonas muttered. Keller crossed his arms. "Something always happens. Listen, kid, I'm not covering for you again. You think the aliens care about us mechanics? They'll replace us with bots the moment we slip?" Jonas nodded absently. He didn't want to explain. Keller wouldn't understand, or worse, Keller would report him to keep himself safe. Jonas worked in silence for the next few hours, patching a cracked fuel line on a cargo hauler. His hands moved on instinct, but his mind wandered. He kept replaying last night. The look in Soraka's eyes, the sound of those officers laughing, the moment when he swung that pipe. He still couldn't believe he had done it. By midday, news began to spread through the dockyard. 2 alien officers were dead. One more was injured. The incident had happened in the lower district. Witnesses claimed they saw a human involved. Jonas froze when he overheard the mechanics whispering. "Police are furious. They say some human trash attacked them. Stupid. Whoever it is, they'll vanish. The officers will make sure of it. They say the woman was important, dangerous to cross her people." Jonas felt the blood drain from his face. He kept his head down and forced himself to keep working. But fate didn't give him much time. Late that evening, as the last shift ended, 2 figures walked into the workshop. They weren't police. Jonas could tell instantly. Police walked like predators, armored and loud. These 2 were quiet, smooth, and dangerous in a different way. Both were tall, scaled aliens with sharp features and cloaks that shimmered faintly in the neon light. Their eyes locked onto Jonas with chilling focus. Keller noticed them first. He paled and quickly bowed. "Gentlemen, welcome. How can we help?" One of the strangers raised a hand to silence him. His gaze never left Jonas. "You. Come." Jonas's heart pounded. He wanted to run, but his legs wouldn't obey. Slowly, he set down his tools and followed them out of the workshop. They led him through the maze of alleys, deeper into the city's shadows. For a moment, Jonas thought they might be assassins, ready to drag him to some dark corner and leave him bleeding. But instead, they brought him to a building unlike any other he had seen. It was carved into the side of a massive tower, guarded by symbols etched in glowing red. Armed sentries stood outside, their weapons sleek and deadly. Jonas realized where he was: a gang stronghold. Inside, the air was heavy with incense and smoke. Music throbbed from hidden speakers, and alien enforcers lounged around, watching him with cold curiosity. At the far end of the chamber sat a figure unlike any Jonas had seen before. Massive, armored in plates of black steel, with tusks curling from his jaw and eyes that burned like molten gold. His presence filled the room with raw power. Vurak Kai. Jonas knew the name. Everyone did. The most feared gang leader in the sector. His syndicate stretched across 3 star systems. Merchants paid him tribute. Smugglers worshipped him. Even the police whispered his name with caution. And Jonas had saved his wife. Human. Vurak Kai rumbled, his voice deep enough to shake the walls. "Do you know who you touched fate with last night?" Jonas swallowed hard. His mouth was dry. "Her name is Soraka." "I didn't know more than that." A ripple of laughter rolled through the room, dark and cruel. Vurak Kai leaned forward, tusks gleaming. "Soraka is mine, my wife. The mother of my bloodline. You struck down officers of the law to defend her." Jonas felt every eye in the chamber burning into him. His knees trembled, but he forced himself to speak. "They were hurting her. I couldn't just—" "Walk away." Silence fell. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, to Jonas's shock, Vurak Kai laughed, a booming, guttural sound that shook the chamber. "A human, small, fragile, weak, and yet you dared raise your hand against armored enforcers for no reward. Foolish, reckless, brave." Soraka stepped out from behind the throne. Her bruises were gone, hidden beneath fine robes, but her eyes still carried that same sharp intensity. She looked at Jonas with something between gratitude and curiosity. "He is different," she said softly. When no one else moved, he did. Vurak Kai's gaze never left Jonas. "The police call for your death. They offer reward for your head, but I—" His tusks curved into something like a smile. "I offer protection." Jonas blinked in disbelief. "Protection? You defended what is mine. That demands respect. From this day you walk under my shadow. Any who harm you harm me. And if the police seek you, they must first face the wrath of Vurak Kai." The chamber roared with approval. Jonas felt dizzy. This was insane. Yesterday he was a mechanic no one cared about. Today, the most feared gang lord in the sector was claiming him as an ally. He wanted to protest, to say he wasn't part of this world. But something in Vurak Kai's gaze told him refusal wasn't an option. So he bowed his head slightly. "I understand." Vurak Kai leaned back on his throne. "Good, stay close to Soraka. Learn quickly. You will need it." As Jonas left the chamber later that night, escorted by guards, he couldn't stop shaking. He didn't know if he had just been saved or trapped. But one thing was certain: the police wouldn't forget. The following days on Kareth Prime felt like walking through fire. Jonas tried to go back to work, to keep his life small and quiet. But it was impossible. Wherever he went, eyes followed him. Whispers trailed behind him. That's the human. The one who stood against the police. The one who saved Vurak Kai's wife. He heard it in markets and alleys, even in the dockyard. Some voices spoke with awe, others with fear. But all knew his name now. For the first time, Jonas wasn't invisible, and that terrified him. At the dockyard, Keller pulled him aside. The older mechanic's face was pale with worry. "You need to leave, kid," Keller muttered in a low voice. "This is too big. The police are searching every district. They're saying a human killed their officers. They're demanding punishment." Jonas looked down at his grease-stained hands. "I didn't kill anyone. They attacked me, He trailed off. What was the point of explaining? Truth didn't matter here. Keller's jaw tightened. Doesn't matter what happened. What matters is what people believe. And they believe you humiliated the police. They won't stop until you're broken. Jonas knew Keller was right. But where could he go? Off-world? He had no ship, no credits. And now, thanks to Vurakai, he was tied to the most dangerous syndicate in the sector. Leaving wasn't an option anymore. That night, Jonas returned to his small room above a market stall. He kept the lights dim and the door locked. But even then, he couldn't sleep. Every sound outside made him jump. Every shadow made him think police armor would smash through the wall. When the knock came, he almost screamed. He froze, staring at the door. Another knock followed, soft but steady. "Jonas," a familiar voice called. "It is me." Cautiously, he opened the door. Saraka stood there, cloaked in dark fabric, her eyes watchful. "You should not be here," Jonas whispered. "And yet I am," she replied calmly, stepping inside. She moved with quiet confidence, as though no one in the city could touch her. Jonas closed the door quickly. "Why are you here? Don't you know how dangerous this is?" Her gaze softened. "Dangerous for you. Less so for me. My husband has power, but the police are hungry for revenge. They whisper about you in their halls. They cannot allow a human to shame them. If they let this pass, they lose fear. They lose control." Jonas sank onto his bed, running a hand through his hair. "So what am I supposed to do? Hide forever?" Saraka studied him for a long moment. "You stood for me when you could have walked away. You acted with honor. That is rare here. That is why my husband respects you, and it is why the police fear you, not because of what you are, but because of what you represent." Jonas frowned. "I don't represent anything. I'm just human," she finished for him. "Yes, small, weak, overlooked, that is what they believe. And yet you proved them wrong. That cannot be undone." Her words struck something deep inside him. He wanted to deny it, to laugh it off, but he remembered the faces in the crowd, the whispers, the way people looked at him now. For the first time, humans weren't background noise. They weren't invisible, and that scared the powerful. 2 days later, the storm broke. Jonas was on his way back from the docks when the attack came. A group of armored officers blocked the street ahead, their helmets glowing with red visors. Behind them, more figures stepped out from the shadows. "A trap." Jonas froze. His heart hammered in his chest. "There he is," one officer snarled. "The little human hero." They advanced, batons crackling with energy. Jonas backed away, searching for escape, but more officers cut off the path behind him. For a moment, he thought it was over. Then the air filled with the roar of engines. From the rooftops above, sleek hovercrafts descended, painted black with crimson markings. Gang enforcers leapt down, weapons gleaming. They moved like shadows, fast and ruthless. Vurakkai's men. The street exploded into chaos. Batons clashed with blades. Plasma fire lit up the night. Jonas ducked behind a stall as the battle raged around him. One enforcer grabbed him by the arm. "Move, human. The boss wants you alive." Before Jonas could reply, a baton swung toward his head. The enforcer shoved him aside, taking the blow himself. He fell, groaning, but the distraction gave Jonas time to scramble away. The fight lasted minutes, but it felt like hours. In the end, the police retreated, dragging their wounded with them. Vurakkai's men stood victorious, though blood stained the ground. The leader of the enforcers, a scarred alien with silver eyes, turned to Jonas. "The boss wants you at the hall, now." Jonas didn't argue. The gang hall was louder this time, packed with soldiers and lieutenants. The air buzzed with tension. At the center, Vurakkai sat on his throne, tusks gleaming in the low light. When Jonas was brought forward, the hall fell silent. "The police struck openly in my city," Vurakkai growled, his voice like thunder. "Not against me, not against my lieutenants. Against you." Jonas swallowed hard. "I didn't ask for this." The gang lord leaned forward, his golden eyes blazing. "No, but you cannot escape it. You are mine now, human. My shield, my symbol. You bled for my family. Now others will bleed for you." Jonas stared at him in disbelief. "I don't want a war." The hall erupted in laughter. Vurakkai's tusks curved into a grin. "War has already come, whether you want it or not. The police cannot tolerate you. The people cannot ignore you. And I will not waste you." Saraka stepped forward, her voice calm but strong. "The human gave me protection when none dared. That is power the police cannot match. That is why they fear him." Vurakkai slammed his fist against the arm of his throne. "Then let them fear. Let them learn what happens when they strike at what is mine." The hall roared with approval. Jonas stood frozen, heart racing. He felt like a man caught in a current too strong to fight. He had only wanted to do the right thing, to save someone in trouble. But now his choice had set fire to the city. The gang saw him as a hero. The police saw him as an enemy. And the people, humans, aliens, the poor, the broken, they whispered his name like it meant something new. The storm was no longer gathering. It was here. The sky over Careth Prime burned red that morning. Jonas stood at the edge of the city, his eyes fixed on the horizon. The first ships appeared as tiny specks glinting like distant stars. At first he thought it was a fleet coming to patrol the sector. But the numbers were wrong, too many. Hundreds of ships, 200 by the count of his quick calculations. The ground trembled beneath his feet as the ships descended. Massive alien vessels from distant star systems, each one marked with the colors and symbols of Viewership's syndicate. They blocked the skies, casting shadows over the city that stretched like fingers of doom. Jonas's stomach sank. He had known the gangs could strike, but never like this. This was not a simple fight over turf. This was a declaration of war. Soraka appeared beside him, her forearms folded across her chest. Her eyes scanned the fleet, calm yet focused. "They have come to protect what is ours," she said softly, "and to remind the police that even humans can carry weight beyond what they expect." Jonas swallowed hard. He felt small again. But deep down, a spark stirred, a stubborn refusal to shrink in the face of danger. The streets below were chaos. Citizens ran in every direction, seeking shelter from the strange shadows of the descending ships. Alien police forces scrambled to their vehicles, calling for reinforcements, but the sheer number of arriving ships was overwhelming. Even the most confident officers faltered. Jonas turned to Soraka. Why so many?" She met his gaze, her eyes serious. "Because you acted when no one else would." One human, weak, small, untrained, stood against them. And that act changed the balance. "They came for you, human, to protect their own." Jonas shook his head. "I didn't ask for this. I'm not special." Soraka's voice was calm, almost firm. "Special doesn't need asking. You already are. That is what scares them." Jonas realized she was right. Every alien in the city, from gang enforcer to street trader, was watching him. Every whisper, every glance marked him as the one who dared to act. And now the skies reflected it. Viewership's voice boomed over the city through powerful loudspeakers mounted on the gang ships. "Officers of Careth Prime," he called, his tusks glinting in the rising sun. "You have humiliated yourselves by attacking the human who defends my family. Today, you will learn respect. Today you will see what happens when you underestimate those you consider weak." The city fell silent at the sound. Even the police officers paused mid-movement. Jonas felt a mix of fear and disbelief. He had not asked to be the symbol of defiance. He had only acted on instinct. Yet here he was, standing in the center of a galactic standoff. He looked up at the ships again. Each one bristled with weapons, engines glowing like molten fire. Jonas swallowed hard. If these ships opened fire, the city would burn. But then another thought struck him. These were Viewership's people, not the enemy. They weren't here to destroy, but to protect. And somehow that thought gave him courage. The police commanders met on a rooftop, their figures silhouetted against the red sky. They spoke in rapid alien tones, arguing about strategy, about honor, about how to respond. But Jonas, from his vantage point below, understood the truth without knowing the language. They were afraid of the human, afraid that one small act of courage could unravel their control over the city, afraid that the human had already won. Jonas took a deep breath. He could feel the energy in the air, the tension humming like a wire stretched too tight. People were running, ships hovered, and the police were frozen in indecision. He clenched his fists. He had no weapons, no fleet, nothing but himself. Yet somehow that was enough to shift the balance. Somehow his single act had caused fear to spread like wildfire through the most powerful officers of Careth Prime. It wasn't skill or strength that mattered. It was resolve. Jonas's heart pounded, and for a brief moment he saw the truth of being human. Humans weren't the strongest. They weren't the fastest. They weren't the most terrifying. But humans acted when others froze. A message came over a floating hologram projected by one of the approaching gang ships. It was Viewership himself, his enormous presence filling the air like a shadow. "Bring the human to the center of the city," he commanded. "Let all see the courage of those who act with honor." Jonas's stomach dropped. The center of the city? In front of everyone? Soraka placed a hand on his shoulder. You will stand, she said. Not because you are forced, but because you already do. You saved me. You saved yourself. Now you save everyone else by showing that courage is not measured by size or strength, but by action. Jonas nodded slowly. She was right. He could run, hide, disappear into the shadows. But the city had already seen him. And running now would only prove the fear others felt, prove that he was small and powerless. He squared his shoulders. He would face them. The journey to the city center was tense. Police squads blocked the streets, their weapons drawn. Citizens lined the roads, watching with a mixture of fear and awe. The gang enforcers flanked Jonas, keeping him safe as he moved through the crowd. Whispers filled the air. The human. Jonas felt their eyes on him. Every glance weighed like a hand on his chest. Yet he refused to shrink. He refused to falter. And when the center of the city opened before him, he understood why Vurakai had chosen this moment. The square was massive, surrounded by government buildings, towers, and floating platforms. Hovercrafts circled overhead. The alien police waited, tens of thousands of officers ready, weapons aimed. And above it all, the gang ships hovered, 200 strong, blocking the sky. Jonas took a deep breath. His ribs still hurt. His hands shook, but he lifted his chin. He stepped forward. Every officer froze. Every citizen watched. Every gang member stood ready. And Jonas, a single human among millions of alien beings, became the spark that held them all in balance. Vurak-Kai's voice rang out again, amplified by the loudspeakers. Today, a human stands before you not as prey, not as weak, not as unimportant, but as proof that courage cannot be measured in size, species, or technology. Watch carefully. Learn well, the officers whispered among themselves, uncertain, fearful. Their training, their armor, their power, all of it suddenly felt hollow against the courage of one small human who refused to back down. Jonas's chest rose and fell. He could feel their fear, their hesitation, their respect beginning to form. And for the first time in his life, he realized what humans could be when they refused to yield. One human had acted. One human had changed the balance of an entire city. Jonas stood at the center of the massive city square, his chest heaving. His ribs ached from old injuries, his hands shook from tension, and his legs felt like lead. Yet he did not bow, did not flinch, did not retreat. All around him the world waited. The alien police, tens of thousands strong, leveled their weapons at him. 200 gang ships hovered above, engines glowing like molten suns. Citizens lined the streets, silent, watching. Jonas swallowed. He had never felt so small, yet he also felt something else, a strange, steady power. The power of one who does what must be done, no matter the cost. Soraka stepped beside him, her forearms folded. Remember, she said softly, you are not alone. They came because you acted. You are the symbol. That is what makes you strong. Jonas nodded slowly. He had to believe her. He had no other choice. The chief police commander stepped forward. His armor gleamed under the neon sky. His voice was harsh, metallic. Human, he said, you have defied us. You have struck down our officers. You have shamed us. Surrender and perhaps we will show mercy. Jonas's heart raced. Mercy from these officers? He knew the answer before it was asked. There would be no mercy. Not for him. Not for anyone who defied them. I did what was right, Jonas said, his voice clear and loud enough to echo across the square. I saved someone in need. I will not bow to fear. I will not hide. And I will not let cruelty go unanswered. A murmur ran through the crowd. Some gasped. Some cheered softly. The police officers exchanged glances, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. This hesitation was Jonas's only chance. The commander's hands tightened on his weapon. Do you understand the consequences? He barked. You are alone. You are a human. You cannot fight all of us. Jonas looked up at the ships above. 200 gang vessels, loyal and ready to strike, hovered in the sky. He realized something. He wasn't truly alone. Every gang enforcer, every soldier, every ally of Vurak-Kai was ready to protect him. And yet this moment wasn't about weapons. It was about courage. Maybe I am small, Jonas said, raising his voice. Maybe I am weak. Maybe I am just one human. But sometimes that is enough. One person who acts, One person who refuses to bow can change everything. The crowd grew louder. Citizens and gang members alike felt the power of his words. Even some police officers faltered, unsure of their own purpose. Vurakkai's voice thundered from the loudspeakers mounted on his fleet. Look closely, officers of Kareth Prime. This human, fragile, weak, and small, stands in front of you without fear. This is what it means to act when the rest of the world freezes. This is what courage looks like. Learn well. Jonas's chest rose with each word. He realized something profound. The humans he had once thought of as insignificant, quiet, overlooked, invisible, had a power no armor, no ship, no weapon could ever take away. Courage, resolve, action, and it was contagious. The police commander barked orders. Some officers hesitated, their weapons wavering. Others aimed carefully, unsure if the attack should begin. Fear and doubt had spread through their ranks like wildfire. They had trained for war, for discipline, for obedience. But one human, acting from instinct and honor, had unraveled it all. Jonas raised his hand slowly, showing he carried no weapon. I will not fight you, he said. But I will not run. I will not bow. I ask only this, leave the innocent unharmed. And this without bloodshed. That is the only way for you to keep honor. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, something remarkable happened. One officer, younger than the rest, lowered his weapon slightly. Another did the same. A few more followed. The fear that had frozen their hearts began to break. They saw a human, small and fragile, who dared to stand for what was right. And in that act they glimpsed the truth. Courage could inspire even the strongest. The commander's voice shook with rage. Do not follow him. Stand your ground. But it was too late. The human spark had ignited. Jonas felt Soraka's hand on his shoulder. You see? She said quietly. It spreads. One action is enough, he nodded. The human race had survived in a galaxy that often ignored them, underestimated them, and oppressed them. They had survived not because they were strongest, but because they acted when others did not. And now Jonas embodied that truth. He stepped forward, taking one slow, deliberate step toward the commander. Each footfall echoed across the square. Citizens leaned forward. Police officers faltered. Gang members straightened. Even Vurakkai's ships hovered silently above, engines low, watching. This was not the end of the battle, but it was the beginning of something greater. The commander raised his voice one final time. Do you not fear us? Jonas smiled faintly. I fear what is unjust. I fear cruelty. I fear those who would harm the innocent. But I do not fear you. You can threaten me. You can surround me. You can shoot. But you cannot stop courage. You cannot stop action. You cannot stop what is right. A hush fell over the square. The air vibrated with tension as if the city itself was holding its breath. Then slowly the commander lowered his weapon. A murmur ran through his ranks. Others followed. One by one the standoff dissolved. Not through fire, not through force, but through the simple act of human courage. Jonas's chest swelled. He had not fought with weapons. He had not demanded respect. He had simply stood. And in that moment, the city, the gangs, the police, and the people understood something new. Humans could inspire. Humans could lead. Humans could change the galaxy, not through power, but through will. Vurakkai's voice boomed again. See, my friends, what a human can do. One act of courage unites more than fear ever could. Today, the galaxy learns that humans are not to be ignored. The crowd erupted into cheers. Even the police, still shaken, could not deny the truth. One human had stood when others cowered, and in doing so had held the city and perhaps the entire sector in balance. Jonas felt Soraka's hand squeeze his shoulder. You have done it, she said softly. Not because you are strong, not because you are armed, but because you are human. That is enough. Jonas looked up at the sky, at the hovering ships, at the trembling police, at the cheering citizens. For the first time, he understood the weight of a single choice. One human, acting with honor and courage, could change the world. And that world, he realized, had only just begun to notice. As the sun rose higher over Kareth Prime, the city slowly returned to life. The police withdrew, confused and humbled. The gangs remained, powerful and watchful, but no longer in open battle. Citizens whispered about the human who had dared to act, and in every corner of the city the stories spread like fire. Jonas walked back to the alleyways where it had begun, his heart still racing. The memory of the first attack, the pain, the fear, it all came back. But he smiled faintly. He had acted when no one else would.